Hi, everybody.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's going great. How are you?
I'm good. Trying to admit everybody in the waiting room. We'll just wait a few minutes like normal to let everybody get on. Okay, we have more than we did last class so far. That's good. Okay, I'm going to start taking attendance. So I'll just check your names off. Jaden. And Lily and Callie. Kylie. Tamarian. Okay. I'm just going to finish taking attendance and let everybody that's in the waiting room get in, and then we'll get started. Let's see, Genesis, you are in the gold group, so your class is actually tomorrow in here. So if you want to hop off and come back on tomorrow, or you can stay if you want and not come tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to read off the names I have as here. And if I don't say your name, let me know so I can get you down. Okay, so I have Jalea, Scott, Callie and Lily, Taylor, Kylie, Rosie, Jaden, and Tamarian. Did I get everybody?
No, ma'am, you didn't write down my name.
Is that Autumn? Autumn. Okay, thank you.
Genesis is here.
Okay. Genesis, if you want, do you want to stay today, or your class is technically tomorrow, but if you want to stay today, you can. Do you want to stay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So if this is your first time in this class and you haven't watched the recordings yet, I'm just going to remind everybody that if you participate, your name gets entered in a drawing for a gift card at the end of the summer. So participate as much as you can. And that's how we're going to start today. So if you wrote your 3 to 5 sentences that we talked about last time, it was also on your assignment. 3 to 5 sentences about how you think the lottery might have started, some background for the lottery. So who wants to start reading us what you wrote down for the background of the lottery? Anybody want to start? Did anybody do the assignment? You did? Lily?
I did.
Okay. Lily, do you want to read what you wrote first? Taylor, you don't have your books? Is that what you're missing? Okay. That's okay. Just whenever you get your books back, maybe you can catch up on this assignment. Okay, so Autumn, did you say you did the assignment? Can you read us what you wrote?
I don't have my journal with me right now, but I can tell you, like, I remember like what I put down. So whenever I was like imagining the beginning, this has been happening for a very long time now, probably since the town has been around.
Okay.
So I assume something happened that caused it all. Like what I had in my mind was there was a mayor, like an overall head of the town, and they had a son or daughter, and they got stoned to death, and no one would come and say who did it. So he decided to make a drawing. So every month or two, someone had to get stoned to death because no one owned up to their actions.
Okay, that's an interesting take. Does anybody have something to like contribute to that? Did any of you write something similar to that? Like maybe it was a punishment because no one would kind of fess up to the crime. Did anybody write something similar to that? I can't see most of you. So, Lily, what did you write about for yours? It can be either the background or how the tradition started, either one. Just a little skit about a few kids. So you think it was more like a play, possibly?
No, so like what I did was I went like it's a short story, right? So
It's okay.
the short story itself started somewhere. So I just wrote like before the short story started, like kind of like stretched out the story a little bit.
Okay. Do you want to share like what you wrote?
No, not really.
Not really. Okay.
Yeah, share. I'll read it for her. You want me to?
Who wants to read it for her?
Do you want me to read it for her?
Oh, do you have it to where you can read it?
Yeah, she's right across from me.
If she wants you to, do you hear she reads it? Okay.
Are you ready for the lottery, Julia? Frank questioned. I'm kind of scared, she responded. As the kids pulled out of the schoolyard, one of her childhood friends tapped her shoulder. You ready? Dante asked. How many times do I have to say this? She responded as they reached the back of the crowd gathered at the square.
Good. So yeah, she wrote more like as if she were the author, which is totally fine. I told you last class that that's something you could do. So we don't totally know, and we don't really find out in the story why the lottery started, but there is a line. If you have your book with you, go ahead and turn to page number 297. 297, and about one paragraph up from the bottom, so like the second to last paragraph, in the middle it says, there used to be a saying about lottery in June, corn be heavy soon. And so that kind of hints at maybe it was something like kind of like a rain dance, like Indians might have done before. This was maybe a different take on that, obviously much more extreme. But maybe that's the only thing that we have in the story that kind of hints at what possibly the background could be. And so that's why I wanted you to write about what you might have thought, because we really don't have a lot of information about what the lottery was about and why it started. So before we get into actually reading, and we're not going to read every page, but I have some notes I want to give you throughout this story, because obviously it's very interesting. And we know that it was a tradition to have the lottery every year, but we'll get into more of the notes here in a minute. But I want to show you a video. Actually, there is like a, not graphic, but it is a short film, I guess you would call it, of the lottery. So it basically takes exactly what the story says. It's almost word for word. And it turned it into like a short film. And so I'm going to show you guys that. It's not graphic, thankfully, but it's pretty interesting. So I'm going to share my screen. And let's see. Here we go. So hopefully you guys can hear this. Let me know if you can't.
the slots over here.
Steve hates to eat those TV dinners. I don't blame him.
Dick Delacroix's a pest. I think he's cute. I understand that I do that second grade teacher.
The new roof up? Finished yesterday.
Come on, Harry, put it back.
You ever hear of taxes going down?
Then I'm going to finish it off with some lace around the sleeves.
Harry, you come here now. Sally.
Come here.
Bobby Martin.
You, Bob, come here, now. Little late today, folks. Guess this'll do it, Harry. Some of you fellas want to give me a hand? Come on, Bix. Thank you, Phil. Hi, Baxter. Think that should do it?
I clean forgot what day it was. I looked out the window and the kids was gone. I remembered it was the 27th. I came running. You're in time. You're still getting ready.
Do you solemnly swear that you will perform without prejudice or favoritism those duties prescribed by custom and dictated by law?
I do.
Bill's up front.
Postmaster
I'll see you later.
of this community, by the authority of my office, I appoint you master of the lottery.
Here comes Tessie, Bill.
Thought we were going to have to get on without you, Tessie.
You would never leave my dishes in the sink, would you, Joe?
Well, now, guess we better get started. Get this over with so as we can go back to work. Anybody else ain't here?
Dunbar.
Clyde Dunbar ain't here. Clyde Dunbar. That's right. He's broke his leg, hasn't he? Who's drawing for him this year?
I guess.
Janie, ain't you got a grown boy to do it for you?
Well, Horace ain't but 16 yet. I guess I'll have to do it myself this year.
Watson boy drawing this year? Here. I'm drawing for me and my ma.
Good boy, Jack. Glad to see your mother's got a man to do it.
Well, I guess that's everyone. Old man Warner make it? Here. All ready? I'll read the names then. Heads of families first. The men come up and draw a paper out of the box. I keep the paper folded in your hand without looking at it until everyone's had a turn. Everything clear? Adam.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Steve. Anderson. Bentham.
Seems like there's no time at all between lotteries anymore. Seems like only last week we got through with the last one.
Yeah, time sure does go fast. Clark. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Joe.
Delacroix. Hi, Stan.
Hi, Joe.
Dunbar.
There she goes.
Where next? Graves. Harvard. Hutchinson.
Get up there, Bill. That a girl, Tessie?
Jones.
They say over in Warren County they're talking about giving up the lottery. Pack of crazy fools listening to the young folks. Nothing is good enough for them.
Judd.
First thing you know, everybody wanted to be going back to living in caves. Nobody work anymore. Live that way for a while.
Cleffer.
Used to be a saying, lottery in June, corn heavy soon. Next thing we'd know, we'd all be eating stewed chickweed and acorn.
Langley.
There's always been a lottery.
Hi, Mitch. Hi, Joe.
Bad enough to see young Joe Summers out there joking with everybody.
Martin.
Some places have already quit lotteries.
Nothing but trouble in that. Pack of young fools.
Overdyke.
I wish they'd hurry.
Percy. Robinson. Summers. Warner.
77th year I've been in the lottery. 77th time.
Watson.
Don't be nervous, Jack.
Take your time, son. Zanini. All right, George. All right, fellas.
Bill Hutchinson's got it.
You didn't give him time enough to pick the one he wanted. I saw you. You didn't give him time. It wasn't fair. Be a good sport, Tessie. We all took the same chance.
Everybody, that went pretty fast. Now we're going to have to be hurrying a little more to get done in time. Bill, you drew for the Hutchinson family. You got any other households in the Hutchinsons? Any in-laws? Grandchildren?
There's Don and Eva. Make them take their chance.
Daughters draw with their husbands' families. You know that as well as anyone else, Tessie.
It isn't fair.
I guess not, Joe. My married daughter draws with her husband's family. It's only fair. I got no other family except kids.
How many kids, Bill?
3. Nancy, Bill Jr., Davy, and Tessie and me.
All right, Harry, you got 4 tickets ready?
Yeah.
Drop them in the box. Take Bill's and put it in. Ready, Bill?
I think we should start over. It wasn't fair. That didn't give him time enough to choose. Everybody saw that. We all saw that. Please listen to me. Joe didn't give Bill enough time.
You ready, Bill? Remember, take a slip and keep it folded until each person's taken one. Now, Harry, you help little Davy. Take the paper out of the box, Davy. Just take one. Harry, you hold it for him. Nancy? Bill Jr.? Tessie? Bill?
I hope it's not Nancy.
It ain't the way it used to be. People ain't the way they used to be.
All right, open the papers. Harry, you open little Davy's. Nancy? Bill Jr.? Tessie? Bill? It's Tessie. Show us her paper, Bill. All right, folks, let's finish quickly.
Come on, hurry up. I can't run. You go ahead, I'll catch up with you. Hey, Davy. It's there.
Okay, so that is the end of that. Exit that. Okay. So does anybody have questions, comments, anything like that about the story you read or the video we watched or anything before we kind of get into studying it a little bit closer? Anybody have anything they want to say? Questions? Okay. So we're going to start just kind of looking over this. And if you have your book, it starts on page 291. And we're just going to look just for a few minutes at some things that kind of really stand out. So the major lesson I want to give you that I think is the main point of the story. Now, different people may have different interpretations, and that's the good thing about literature. I can see something one way, you could see it a different way, and that's totally fine. But I think the biggest takeaway, at least for me from this story, is do not blindly follow tradition. So we see throughout this whole story how much tradition plays a role in the lottery itself. So it starts off, you look at page 292, you see in the middle of the second paragraph, it says, when he arrived in the square carrying the black wooden box. So that adjective, the, kind of lets us know that this is something that they use every single time. It's the black wooden box. It's not just any old box. It's something they used every time. And then in the next paragraph, it says the original paraphernalia for the lottery had been lost long ago. So this is kind of some symbolism showing the fact that the meaning of the lottery, whatever it was, like we said, we don't really know, but whatever that meaning was, it had been lost a long time ago. So they are simply having the lottery because they've always had the lottery. And this paragraph where it talks about a long time ago, they had lost the original paraphernalia. In addition to that, they really lost the meaning. Like you saw and you read last night too, hopefully, but you would see in the video how they talked about, you know, the old man Warner saying that, well, we just do this because we've always done it. And no one really knows why. And so the biggest takeaway for me is that we shouldn't blindly follow tradition. On page 293, again, we see every year after the lottery. So this is something that is annually held. They have a lottery. We talked about, or you heard in the little film, how she said, it seems like there's less and less time between the lottery every year. So each year, this was something that they did. And it's very extreme, obviously. They all put their names into the box and they draw them out, and whoever's name has a mark on it, that family, all their names go into the box again, and whoever is drawn out, so it may be the wife, could be the child, could be the father, anyone in the family group, if their name is drawn, they are the one to be stoned to death, really for no good reason. And so we see that this is really an issue of tradition. So now there has been some change in the lottery. We heard a lot about how Old Man Warner was saying we shouldn't change whatever, but on 294, if you look about the middle of that first paragraph, it says that some people believe that the official of the lottery used to stand just so when he said or sang it. Others believe that he was supposed to walk among the people. But years and years ago, this part of the ritual had been allowed to lapse. So there were some things that were allowed to change. But something like where the man stood, or if he walked, or if he stood still, isn't really that important when you think about someone's going to die. I think one thing that's also very interesting about this is how Shirley Jackson starts the story. At the beginning of the story, we just see the morning of June 27th was clear and sunny with fresh warmth of a full summer day. So if you're reading just the first paragraph, you're probably not expecting this to be a story that has to do with murder and death. It starts off very bright and light, and it really makes the audience think this could be anybody. This could be anyone's life. This is a very everyday type of morning. There's some irony in the fact that Tessie, the one who ended up being stoned, if you remember earlier in the story, she's the one that came up and said, oh my gosh, I forgot that today was the lottery. It wasn't something that they dreaded for weeks to come. It seemed just like any other day. And I think that's very interesting too, because I imagine if you or I had to attend an event like the lottery, we would be knowing exactly the day and the time. We'd be dreading it. We'd be trying to get out of it. But these people just showed up. They said, let's get it over quickly, things like that. So it's very interesting to see the way that Jackson wrote this, because she really wrote it in the style of this is just their life. This could be anyone's life. It's very plain and simple. And they're just all gathering together. And we really don't know until the very end why they're even meeting. And there's a lot of suspense in this story because we don't know what's going to happen. We see all these ceremonial things like drawing the names and everybody gather around, and some children are gathering stones. Yes, it's very similar to the Hunger Games. And then at the very end, someone gets stoned, and it really leaves us wondering why. So did anyone else write about the beginning of the story? That was your assignment. So I just want to make sure if you did it, that you share, because that way I know that you did your assignment. So anybody else write 3 to 5 sentences about what the background could have been. Even if you don't want to read it, just let me know you did it. Anybody else? Callie did?
I did.
You did? Do you want to share or no? No?
I did too.
Is that Rosie?
Yeah.
Rosie, Jaden, Callie. Okay. You guys all did it. Okay. So I think the background of the lottery, my thinking of it is it probably was something that got started a long time ago with some hidden meaning. My guess is that the first time that it happened, there was maybe a coincidence with the crops doing really well or something, and it got lost in translation as far as we have to do this in order to have a productive season. We have to do this in order to have a good harvest. My guess is that there was some kind of a coincidence that started this, and then it continued as a tradition. Let's see, I wonder what they would do if someone didn't die from the stoning. My guess is they would continue stoning until they were dead, is kind of, I think, the implication. I don't know if someone, I guess, possibly could have survived. And this would be something that it would be interesting to see. You know, we think of the Hunger Games where they kind of found a loophole, if you're familiar with that, to the system. It would be interesting to see what would happen if, you know, someone ran away from the stoning, or if someone were able to escape or not show up and their name was drawn, you know, something like that. Would be interesting to explore how they would react if something was out of the norm, because this was a very tradition-based event. You were supposed to take it. If your name was drawn, you saw them tell Tessie, you know, be a good sport. This is what you're supposed to do. Instead of, there's no sympathy for someone whose name gets called. It doesn't seem like anyone's like, oh, I'm sorry. Even her husband didn't seem that upset about it. So it's a very interesting society. They're really numb to this idea of someone dying in the lottery. It's just kind of like, okay, this is part of life. And we look at it as very much like that is not any part of a normal lifestyle, but for them it was. And so, yes, it would be interesting to explore what would happen if someone didn't die, or, you know, if they were able to get away or something like that. But we really don't know. So do any of you have a different kind of takeaway or theme that you would kind of give to this story? Doesn't have to be deep, but just something that you kind of take away from it. And that's what you think maybe the author wanted her audience to receive from the story. You can type it or you can turn your mic on, either way. Did you say something, Autumn?
I didn't hear the question, if you don't mind repeating it.
Oh, yeah. Does anyone else have a different takeaway from the lottery that maybe I didn't mention, or something you think that the author wanted to convey? Maybe don't be a bad sport because Tessie was freaking out and then she ended up getting stoned. Yeah, so they did not expect her to give any pushback. You were expected to politely kind of accept your fate if you were the recipient of the lottery. And there's also some irony in the fact that, what do we think of when we think of winning the lottery? Well, that's a good thing, obviously. We think of it as, you get a lot of money and you can do whatever you want with that. But in this case, if you won the lottery, that meant death. And so there's definitely some irony in that way too. Any other comments or takeaways from the story? You guys are quiet. Okay, so I want to talk, let's see. Many lifestyles can be different from ours, but seem natural to them. Yes, and that is something very interesting that is good to take away from it, right? Because there are traditions in other cultures, in other countries that are very different than ours that we would think that's kind of strange. And they would come to our country or our culture and say that that's very strange. And so it's definitely true that there can be different customs and cultures and things like that, traditions that go along with it. However, I'm interested to know, and put it in the chat what you might think, but it's interesting to think of, are there still moral rights and wrongs? So just because someone says, well, this is tradition, or this is how our culture does things, are there still morals that should govern that? Or is that just, well, as long as it's part of your culture, it's okay? What do you guys think about that? And I'm going to read this. I wonder how someone can have so little sympathy to kill a child. Yes, and it's interesting. I don't know if you guys caught it in your reading, but you'll see that Tessie, I'll see if I can find it specifically. Yeah, it's on page 299. They're asking if there's any other slips of paper they can put in for other family members. And Mrs. Hutchinson, Tessie, she says, well, there's Dawn and Eva is their oldest daughter. So she's actually willing to put her daughter's life at risk in order to have a lesser chance of her name being drawn. So they're very numb to the fact. And so she was willing to even sacrifice her own child before her own life, which is also very strange to a culture like ours, where most mothers would do anything for their children. So yeah, it is pretty interesting to think about. I think that morals should still matter, even if it's tradition. I think that's a good, there's definitely can be some gray area about what morals are, but something as severe, I think we could mostly agree, something as severe as killing an innocent person, not for really any good reason, probably regardless of the tradition or the culture, is not moral. It's not ethical, at least. And so I think that's something that we can definitely probably agree on, is that morals should still govern some things, especially something as severe as killing someone. We would say, well, it doesn't matter that that's your tradition. It matters whether it's right or wrong. And so that is something that we could say, well, it doesn't matter that you've done this for 200 years. It doesn't matter if this is just a part of your culture. It's still wrong to do so. But there may be others that say, well, as long as it's part of your culture and your tradition and everyone there is on the same page, maybe it's not wrong. And so there's definitely some room for debate about whether that is something good or bad, if they should do this or not. Any other comments? Anybody else have an opinion on whether morals should or shouldn't govern? Oops, I think I just asked someone to unmute. I didn't mean to do that. Anything else? Okay. If not, I want to talk about what we're going to do next class. So next class period, we're still going to be talking about the lottery. So you don't have to read anything else. But what you will be doing, you don't have an actual assignment, but I just want to let you know. Do they still get charged for murder outside the lottery? That's something we don't know. My guess would be yes. I think that it seems to be a pretty normal society outside of the lottery. So I would assume that they do get, charged for murder if they're doing it outside of the lottery. But that's a good question. So next class, we are going to be talking about the lottery once again, but this time we are going to be looking at it in comparison to the Hunger Games, which I think Callie was the one that had mentioned this gave her like Hunger Games vibes. It is very similar. So I mentioned last class that if you haven't seen or read anything from the Hunger Games, you don't have to. We're going to actually watch some of the Hunger Games next class. The lottery was written first. It said that Suzanne Collins, who wrote the Hunger Games, was inspired by Shirley Jackson. So next class, we're actually going to watch like a little bit of the Hunger Games to kind of compare the two. So today we watched the lottery. We'll watch part of the Hunger Games next time. And then I have like a worksheet that we are going to go through and talk about how the lottery and the Hunger Games are similar or different. So that's going to be kind of interesting because it's going to be a lot more participation because we'll look at it together. So you don't have to do this on your own. We'll kind of analyze the Hunger Games and the lottery and kind of compare the two, see where they're different, things like that. So once again, if you're not familiar with the Hunger Games, that's okay. But if you want to kind of come into class with a little extra knowledge, you might want to just take a look at the Hunger Games if you're not familiar. Let's see. I've already read around halfway into the book, if that's okay. I got 4. Oh yeah, you can read, you can have read the whole book. It doesn't matter to me. We're not going to read everything in here. We're going to read this story and one other one. But yes, you're free to read whatever you want in this book. And the same with Edgar Allan Poe. If you want to read ahead, even if you read something that we're going to study later, that is totally fine. And then when that comes up, you just won't have to read it again if you don't want to. So next class will be talking about the Hunger Games. No assignment due. We will start again next week. So every week you're going to have one assignment. So you guys are good for this week. Again, oh, I do want to mention when I post the recording of this, if you have already watched the live, you do not have to go on there and answer the question. I know, I think last time there were a couple, and you guys may not be on here today, but there were a couple people that were on the live and then went ahead and submitted like the question for those that are watching. If you're watching later, you need to answer the question that I'm about to ask. But if you're watching live, you don't have to worry about that because that is just the way we take attendance for those that aren't on the live Zoom. So just to clear that up, if you're on here now, you don't have to do anything else for today's class. And then next class, you'll just show up. We'll talk about the Hunger Games and watch a little bit of that, and that'll be it. So let me get this out. So now this is going to be directed at those of you that are watching later. So if you're watching this on the Google Classroom where it says, probably it'll say like June 7th, ELA recording, you need to answer this question. Give me one reason discussed in class for why the lottery might have existed. So you can tell me what someone else thought or what I said or what you saw in the story, whatever it may be, but you need to take that question, type out a reason. You can email it to me. You can message it to me on Google Classroom. You can send it to me on Remind, whatever works for you. But if you're watching this recording, one reason discussed in class for why the lottery might have existed. Basically some of the background, which is very similar to your assignment if you did that. So that should help you out. Okay, so for the rest of you, do we have, let's see, Callie. Population control, just if they got bored to keep it spicy. Maybe they were just bored and they said, let's do something fun, like kill someone, a member of our society. Who knows? Okay, so does anybody else have questions, comments, anything like that about this class or next class, or even in the future? Questions about the class in general or this summer? No? Okay. If not, I'm going to let you guys go. So just remember, your next assignment won't be till next week. So Sunday is when you should see your next assignment pop up. It's going to start dealing with Edgar Allan Poe. So we have one more class with Jackson, and then we'll do Poe, and then we will kind of combine the two at the very end. So I hope you guys have a great day. It is Monday, so hopefully it hasn't been too long for you guys, but you are free to go. Bye, everybody.